Before we get started in Dharma talk, please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times. Namo Shakya Muni Buddha. Namo Shakya Muni Buddha. Namo Shakya Muni Buddha. Dear Venerable Abbot, dear Sangha, good afternoon. We are on, we skipped a chapter 11. I believe last week or the week prior, the Venerable Abbot did chapter 12 in Devadatta. So I need to go back and do chapter 11. Chapter 11 is the Treasure Tower, Emergence of the Treasure Tower chapter. So the conclusion of chapter 10 concluded remember the beginning when we started this, the Lotus Sutra is separated into 2 kind of main categories, a historical dimension and the ultimate dimension. So chapter 10 concluded the historical dimension part, and so the historical dimension part was everything essentially that happened at location, essentially, during the Buddha's discourses. And the ultimate dimension is really where the stories and the imagery of the Lotus Sutra starts to shift. So after starting from the 11th chapter onward, the imagery is very theatrical. It's going to be very dramatic, and there's lots of details and the story and the scenery and the imagery. And so this is created in order to help us visualize reality as it is. Because in the historical dimension, right, in the place that we are subject to time and space, right? We're subject to past, present, and future. However, in the ultimate dimension, we go beyond that. We transcend time and space, right? Because once we are enlightened, time and space doesn't really exist. It doesn't really matter. It's relative. And so the ultimate dimension, its aim is to help us go beyond our conventional ideas and get in touch with the true nature of reality. And so with the emergence of this treasure tower, well, let me just tell the story. So after the Buddha finished chapter 10, and he was continuing on to preach the Lotus Sutra, the treasure tower, or the stupa, right? A stupa is a building or a tower, or a shrine of some sort, where the bones or the ashes or the remains of highly enlightened beings are kept in, right? Kind of like a tomb. But anyway, after the Buddha spoke on the 10th chapter, the treasure tower emerged from the earth, right? And basically stood in the air as high as the 33rd heaven, according to the stories. And at that time, one of the bodhisattvas in the assembly was like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, where is this tower coming from? What is it? Who's in it? What is it doing here? And so once the tower emerged, a voice proclaimed from this tower saying, good indeed, Shakya Muni Buddha has preached the Lotus Sutra. And so within this tower, the Buddha told the bodhisattva that in this tower, the Buddha of many treasures Buddha is in this tower. And when he was still a bodhisattva, that Buddha made a vow that when he becomes enlightened, that his stupa, his treasure tower, would emerge wherever a Buddha is preaching the Lotus Sutra. And so this symbolism represents that the Lotus Sutra is something that is profound, and it is applicable in any place and time. It is not just an earthly sutra. It is a sutra that is eternal and eternally relevant, right, and universally applicable and capable of leading all beings to Buddhahood. That is the essence right, of this Lotus Sutra. So the whole chapter serves as a profound confirmation or affirmation of the universal and timeless nature of the Dharma. And so through the powerful imagery of this chapter, right, where the tower emerges, and then the Buddha to many treasures speaks, and the vast assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas just reminds us that we need to look beyond our conventional way of seeing and thinking and go beyond into a dimension that is timeless, and beyond space and time. But anyway, when this tower emerged, right, the Bodhisattvas were asking the Buddha, what is this tower doing here? Who is in it? Etc., etc. And so during this time, as the tower was still rising into the heavens, the Buddha was continuing preaching the Lotus Sutra. And during that time, while the tower is still ascending, right, this tower is said to be, oh goodness, what is it, like 500 yojanas high. And just, I forgot what the exact, yes, 500 great yojanas. A small yojana is 40 li, a medium yojana is 60 li, a great yojana is 80 li. So this refers to a great yojana, each is 80 lis, so the stupa was 500 great yojanas tall. Anyway, it's beside the point. It's just one of the little details in this story. But as it was ascending, during this time, the Buddha continued to preach the Lotus Sutra. And during that time, well, I mentioned how tall it is, because imagine trying to literally reach the heavens. So between the time of his emerging from the earth until it reached the heaven, just imagine a very long period of time, right? Because it takes a long time. But during that period, the Buddha was continuing to teach. And during that period, he was able to convert all the Shravakas, right, the voice hearers, to enlightenment, right? And so, because the Shravakas were unenlightened, right, only the Bodhisattvas were able to see the emerging tower, because the tower is coming from an ultimate dimension that's beyond our conventional reality, so they could not see it. And so when the Bodhisattvas were inquiring about what is this tower and what is it doing here and who's in it, the Shravakas were like, what are you talking about? Like, crazy, right? And so, because they couldn't see it, they too were inquiring, what is this Bodhisattva talking about? And so as the tower was ascending, he was preaching to the Shravakas so they too can become enlightened and be able to see the treasure tower. And so by the time it reached the 33rd heaven, all the Shravakas were enlightened. And so they pleaded with the Buddha to allow many treasures Buddha to appear to them. And so once they attain enlightenment, the story goes that the Buddha used his transcendental powers, his supernatural powers, to lift up the entire assembly to the gate of the treasure tower. This too is just a symbolism that by the time the treasure tower reached its peak, all those in the assembly were enlightened, right? They've alleviated themselves. So they were able to see the treasure tower, right? So it doesn't mean that they physically got lifted up to the gates, but that because they were able to transcend their minds and become enlightened, they were able to see the tower and the Buddha. And so then the Buddha welcomed many treasures Buddha, and many treasures Buddha invited the Shakyamuni Buddha to sit with him on the lion throne. This too is very symbolic, because if we think about religion in general, right? Every world religion has a different, to a certain degree, different philosophy, different ideas of what is right and wrong, or heaven and hell, etc., etc. And so if you are in a gathering of different religions and different people, you're going to have the groups of different religions, right? Here's the Christians, here's the Jews, here's the Buddhists, here's the Muslims, here's this and this and that. However, because the treasure Buddha invited Shakyamuni Buddha to sit with him, this means that the Dharma of the many treasures Buddha is equal and just as profound as the Dharma of Shakyamuni Buddha. It is the same Dharma. There is no separation between his Dharma and our Dharma. And so there's a unity there, meaning that the transcendence of the Dharma is universally true, right? So Buddhism applies in anywhere, place, and time. There's no separation. There's no difference. So when the Dharma is preached on Earth, if the Dharma was also preached on Mars, it would be the exact same Dharma, right? There's no differentiation. Because what is the Dharma? Dharma is simply the guides for us to alleviate our suffering, to ease that suffering, to eradicate that suffering, to attain enlightenment, right? Basically, get rid of suffering, attain happiness. That is the goal of Buddhism. And so, when we read in different sutras of the 84,000 Dharma doors, what does 84,000 Dharma doors mean? It means that there's 84,000 different ways to practice the Dharma. Not one door is correct. You come through this door, it's one Dharma. You come from another door, it's the same Dharma. Regardless of what door you enter the Dharma with, the finish line is enlightenment. It's still the same. So regardless of how many doors there are, right, there's 84,000. It just means there's 84,000 different ways to practice. You don't have to practice in a specific way. It's not rigid, right? It's not, this is how it is. This is the only correct way. This is the only correct being or place or practice. No, it's not. There's 84,000 different ways to do it. And because of that, right, and for me personally, back in the day, that was one of the things that that's what I'm looking for. That's what happens when I only have one cup of coffee. So it brought me closer to Buddhism, right? It's because it's not such a rigid thing. It's not, this is Buddhism, this is the only way. You cannot go beyond these teachings. No. It's like, here's Buddhism, but here's also Buddhism. Here's another Buddhism. Here's 5,000 more Buddhisms. Here's 50,000 million more Buddhisms. So there are different methods. Oh man, I lost my page. Now there are different methods of teaching and practicing. And because there are different ways, it's easier for people to be able to practice one way and say, this isn't working for me, and you can try another way, right? That's what, when we go back to meditation. Now we're on the Sublime Gate, Dharma gates, right? And you see the 16 exercises from the Anapanasati Sutra, the Mindfulness of Breathing Sutra. 16 exercises. That means it's not just one way to catch your breath, watch your breath. There's 16 ways. There's more. These were just the 16 obvious ways. There's also different methods of meditation we teach. Watching the breath, feeling the breath, counting, visualizing, mantraing, walking, sitting, lying down, on your head, on your side, doing flip-flops, backflips. I'm missing flip-flops, backflips. There's a plethora of ways to do things. So to me, that just indicates that regardless of what you do, if you at least follow the simple rules or guidelines of the practice, then ultimately you're going to get to where we're all getting anyway, enlightenment. So in the sutra, the Buddha also talks about his emanation bodies. And we see that throughout the sutra. What does emanation bodies mean? It means that he's able to transform or transport himself into different places and areas and locations in time and space. But from our perspective, it just means that wherever you are physically, wherever you left your reputation, or where you left a kind of mark on society, that is an emanation of your body. So if you've ever written a book, and you have your book in bookstores on people's shelves, your emanation body is in those bookstores and on those shelves. If you made a good impact to your community, or you made an impactful impression on someone, that they constantly are reminded of you, that's an emanation body as well. And so the Buddha mentions throughout all the other chapters that all his disciples should make great vows, right? Because we're unenlightened yet, and we don't have the power of the Buddhas to emanate our bodies in other places, right? Instead, in the meantime, at least make some spiritual vows and follow the precepts. The precepts, again, aren't rules. Nowhere in the precepts, in the 5 precepts at least, does it have any mention of worship or submitting or submission, right? There's none of that. And so the precepts are also universal truths. They're also universal practices. So it's common sense. It's abstain from killing, abstain from lying, abstain from sexual misconduct, abstain from stealing, and abstain from intoxicants. Does any of those have to do anything with worship or religion or anything else? No. Common sense things. So if we follow these genuine, clear practices and apply our spiritual vows, right? If we are if you've taken bodhisattva vows, for instance, right? There's a pre-vow that's already written for you that you vow to take. But you're also capable of making your own vows. What are my own vows I've included in our chanting? From now until the end of my life and in all future lives, until I attain anuttara samyak sambuddhi, that I will help all sentient beings in all realms of existence end their suffering. That is my bodhisattva vow. And I've shared it with everyone on the chants as well. So that's an example of a vow. So if you uphold your precepts and uphold your vows, right, then you're able to create emanation bodies of yourself for others. You don't have to be a Buddha to do that. You have the ability to do that right now. So if you're practicing genuinely, and you're practicing with true effort, and correct mindfulness, and correct right view and right intention, right, all the Eightfold Path, then you too can already make a mark in the world. Allow your emanation body to appear before even becoming a Buddha. It's not necessary. And so this whole chapter is essentially about that. It's about the capability that we have to go from Sravaka as unable to see true reality, unable to see our true potential, into taking those bodhisattva vows, applying the precepts, and practicing, and then become enlightened, and you're able to see true reality, the true dimension. This is a debate I was going through with myself when I was meditating on this yesterday, so back in the day, before I changed my major 5,000 times in college, one of my majors was astrophysics. I was halfway through before I gave it up. But anyway, so I'm a huge fan of now quantum physics, right? And so one of the things that the Stupa Tower reminds me of is something that emerged from a different dimension that we're able to see, right? We're 3-dimensional beings. So maybe this is coming from a 4th dimension or 5th dimension that an unenlightened being is unable to see, right? Because we can't even fathom what that would look like. We can't even imagine what something from a 4th or 5th or above dimension even looks like. But when we become enlightened and when we let go of the confines of space and time, right, and be able to truly see reality as it really is, then we can potentially see all the invisible 4th, 5th, 6th plus dimensions that are all around us. It could be around us. It could be here. You just can't see it. Imagine yourself at a 1 dimension or a 2 dimension, right? If we're sitting on a flat piece of 2nd dimension and a sphere comes down or a tower emerges, we don't see the height of it. We just see like a little black line coming and going into existence. But since we're in a 3rd dimension, we're able to see this height. Imagine what we could see at a 4th dimension level. right? And so this is something that the Buddha doesn't emphasize practicing deep meditation, because in deep meditation, if we achieve the highest level of jhana and mahasamadhi, right, which is at that point you're basically just at the finish line. You're practically there at enlightenment, at least at one of the levels. And it's at that point where we can kind of travel to other dimensions, or other realms of existence, according to Buddhist cosmology. So that could be like a sneak peek into seeing higher dimensions. Anyway, that's not beside the point. That's just fun facts. Back to the chapter. So as we go through this chapter should really inspire us, right? Inspire all practitioners that we need to uphold and propagate the Dharma, and propagate the Lotus Sutra, because we need to be confident in its supreme and transformative power. One of the questions that I had when I first started to study the Lotus Sutra was, where is this Lotus Sutra? I'm reading the book, but I don't see where the Lotus Sutra is, right? It keeps mentioning that the Buddha is preaching the Lotus Sutra. And then we get to a point where it's like, okay, the Buddha taught the Lotus Sutra. I'm like, wait a minute, did I miss it? Am I just dumb? Like, I can't read it? And so I don't want to give you the answer that I want everyone to, because I had to find the answer for myself. So I'm going to allow you to find the answer. But the answer starts in this chapter. What the Lotus Sutra is, fundamentally, at this core base level, the answer is in the sutra, in this chapter. To summarize, we're meditating. We're unenlightened beings. Something emerges that, let's say Abel, for example, is enlightened, right? He's a secret bodhisattva. Something emerges, and he's like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. And we're like, what are you talking about? You seen ghosts again? Apparently he sees ghosts all the time. I don't. But anyway, so he sees this emerging tower, and he's like, WTF is this? And we're like, I don't know what this is. And then the Buddha is like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. And we're like, can you show us what this is? And so he teaches us how to see this, how to transcend the conventional way of seeing and thinking and believing, right? And so he teaches us, and so then like, okay, we get that aha moment, and we look over and like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. And the point there is we can go from not seeing to seeing. It is possible. It's doable. But it's not something that I can give you. The Buddha did not give new eyeballs to the disciples that couldn't see the tower, right? He didn't gouge out his own eyeballs and stick them into theirs to be able to see it because he has Buddha eyes or the Buddha seeing. No, he taught them how to see it, how to practice in order to see it, in order to see the truth, in order to see beyond what we would call stuff. I don't know. But the power is not with the Buddha. I cannot give you the means to have a good meditation session. I cannot give you everything that you need to know to learn to alleviate your suffering or pain and attain enlightenment. I can only help guide you. The Buddha can only help guide us. But we have to put in the effort. If you go to a doctor and they prescribe you medicine, just because they prescribed you the medicine doesn't mean you're going to get automatically well. Because you have to take the medicine, right? You have to do the work to open the bottle, stick a pill in your mouth, and drink it, swallow it down. That's your effort to get better. So you need the effort to do better in Dharma, to attain what we all want to attain. But you have to put in the work. I cannot stress that enough. Clock. Can you remind me to put the clock here? Because I keep looking for my clock and it's not there. I'm within time for once. I'm so surprised. Maybe that clock was a distraction from me talking too much. Okay, I'm actually going to stop there since we have a long chant session. Moral of the story, do better. Practice harder. Questions, concerns, emotional outbursts. Make vows if you have not yet made a vow. Or you can steal mine. From now to the end of my life and all future lives until I attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, I would help all sentient beings in all realms of existence end their suffering. No questions? We're enlightened? I did my job? I can retire? Okay, good. I'm tired. Okay, if there's no questions, then we will go transfer the merit, go to chanting. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha Namo Shakyamuni Buddha Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. For any positive karmic action we've accumulated here today, we wish to transfer the merit to all sentient beings and wish them full enlightenment. Section 2, right? Bell. In the censer now is burning all the Dharma realm in every place, auspicious clouds appearing. Our sincere intention thus fulfilling, as all Buddhas now show their perfect body, homage to the incense cloud canopy Bodhisattva and great Bodhisattva. Gratitude we offer this incense to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas throughout space, and may it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting our careful effort, our wholehearted mindfulness, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripening. May we and all beings be Sad. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home. Mechuda eternally abiding Buddhas, the supreme Dharma, and sagely Sangha throughout the Dharma realm and the realm of entities, and 3 periods of time. To the fundamental teacher Shakyamuni Buddha Maitreya, honored future Buddha, Anjushri, great wisdom, Bodhisattva, universal great conduct, Bodhisattva, all Dharma guarding Deva Bodhisattvas, and the glorious mountain assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. To Amitabha Buddha in the land of ultimate bliss of Avalokiteshvara, great compassion, Bodhisattva, great strength, Bodhisattva, earth store, great vow, Bodhisattva, and the assembly of great pure sea-like Bodhisattva. Unsurpassed, profound, and is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of eons. I now see and hear it, receive and uphold it, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Pilgrim, briefly the Lotus Sutra. By a heavenly host he wanders the world without fear like a lion. Namo Sadharma Pundarika Sutra. Namo Sadharma Pundarika Sutra. Namo Sadharma Pundarika Sutra. Let's go to tab 2, page 32. Lotus Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Namo Lotus Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Namo Lotus Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Traham the Lotus of the Wonderful Law, Chapter 4, Believe and Understand. Then at that time Mahakashyapa spoke to the assembly and said, we today have heard the Buddha's voice teaching. We dance for joy, having gained what we never had before. The Buddha declares that the voice hearers will be able to attain Buddha. This cluster of unsurpassed jewels has come to us unsought. It is like the case of a without understanding abandoned his father and ran away, going far off to another land, drifting from one country to another for over 50 years. His father, distressed in thought, searched for him in every direction, till worn out with searching, he halted in a certain city. There he built a dwelling where indulged the 5 desires. His house was large and costly, with quantities of gold, silver, seashell, agate, pearls, lapis lazuli, elephants, horses, oxen, goats, carts, and carriages, fields for farming, men, servants, grooms, and other people in great number. Thousands, 10,000s, millions surrounded him and paid reverence. He enjoyed the constant favor and consideration of the rulers. Such was his vast wealth, the great power and influence he possessed. But as he grew old and decrepit, he recalled his son with greater distress than ever, day and night, thinking of nothing else. Now the time of my death draws near. Over 50 years have since that foolish boy abandoned me. My storehouse is full of goods. What will become of the impoverished son? Was searching for food and clothing, going from village to village, from country to country, sometimes finding something, other times finding nothing, starving and emaciated, his body broken out in sores and ringworm. As he moved from place to place, he arrived in time at the city where his father lived, shifting from one job to another until he came to his father's house. At that time the rich man had spread a large old canopy inside his gate, and he would lie enthroned, surrounded by his dependents and various attendants and guards. The impoverished son, observing how immense and distinguished his father was, supposed he must be the king of a country, or equal of a king. Alarmed and full of wonder, he asked himself why he had come here secretly. He thought to himself, if I before long I will perhaps be seized and pressed into service. Once this thought had occurred to him, he freed, inquiring where there was a poor village, went there in hopes of gaining employment. The rich man at the time seated on his lion throne saw his son in the distance and silently recognized who he was. Immediately he instructed a messenger to hurry after him and bring him the impoverished son, crying out in terror, saying to the ground in distress, "This man has seized me, is surely going to put me to death. To think that my search for food and clothing should bring me to this." The rich man knew that son was ignorant and self-abasing. He will never believe my words, will never believe I am his father. So he employed an expedient means, sending some other men to the son, a one-eyed man, another puny and unclothed, completely lacking in imposing appear, saying, "Speak to him and tell him I will employ him to remove excrement and filth, and will pay him twice the regular wage." When the impoverished son heard this, he was delighted and came with the messengers, weigh excrement and filth, and clean the rooms of the house. From the window the rich man would constantly observe his son, thinking how his son was ignorant and self-abased and delighted in such menial labor. At such times the rich man would put on dirty, ragged clothing, take in hand a utensil for removing excrement, and go to where his this expedient means to approach him, encouraging him to work diligently. "I have increased your wages and giving you oil to rub on your. I will see that you have plenty to eat and drink, mats and bedding that are thick and warm." At times he would speak severely, "You must work hard, or he would say in a gentle voice, "You are like a son to me." The rich man, being wise, gradually permitted his son to come and go in the house, and after 20 years had passed, he put him in charge of household affairs, showing him his gold, silver, pearls, crystal, and the things that were handed out or understand all about them. Though the son continued to live outside the gate, sleeping in a hut of grass, for he looked upon himself as poor, thinking, "None of these things are mine." The father knew that his son's outlook was gradually becoming broader, more worthy, and wishing to hand over his wealth and goods, he called together his relatives, the king of the country and the high ministers, the noblemen and householders. In the presence of this great assembly he declared, "This is my son who abandoned me and wandered abroad for a period of 50 years. Since I found him again, 20 years have gone by long ago. Such and such a city, when I lost my son, I traveled all around searching for him until eventually I came here. My house and people I hand over entirely to him, so he may do with them as he wishes." The son thought how in the past he had been poor, humble, and self-abasing in outlook, but now he had received from his father this huge bequest of rare treasures, along with the father's house and all his wealth and goods. He was filled with great joy, having gained what he never had before. The Buddha too is like this. He knows our fondest petty, and so he never told us you can attain Buddhahood. Instead, he explained to us how he could become free of outflows, carry out the lesser vehicle, and be voiced his hearer, disciples, and the Buddha did us to preach the supreme way and explain that those who practice this will be able to attain Buddhahood. We received the Buddha's teaching, and for the sake of the great Bodhisattvas made use of causes, similes, and parables, a variety of words and phrases to preach the unsurpassed way. When the sons of the Buddha heard the law, day and night they pondered diligently and with effort, practicing it. At the time the Buddha bestowed prophecies on them, saying, in a future existence you will be able to attain Buddhahood. Chapter 5, the parable. Medicinal herbs. At the time the world-honored one spoke and said, the Dharma King, destroyer of beings, when he appears in the world, accords with the desires of living beings, preaching the law. Variety of ways, thus come one worthy of honor and reverence, is profound and far-reaching in wisdom. For long he remained silent regarding the essential, in no hurry to speak of it at once. If those who are wise hear of it, they can believe, understand it, but those without wisdom will have doubts and regrets, and for all time will remain in error. For this reason Kashyapa he adjusts to the person's power when preaching, taking advantage of various causes and enabling the person to gain a correct view. Kashyapa, you should understand that it is rises up in the world and covers it all over. The beneficent cloud is laden with moisture, the lightning gleams and flashes, and the sound of thunder reverberates afar, causing the multitude to rejoice. The rain falls everywhere, coming all four sides. Its flow and saturation are measureless, reaching to every area of the earth, to the ravines and valleys of the mountains and streams, to the remote and secluded places where grow plants, bushes, medicinal herbs, trees large and small, 100 grains, rice seedlings, sugar cane, grapevines. The rain moistens, fails to receive its full share. The parched ground is everywhere watered. Herbs and trees alike grow lush. What falls from the cloud is water of a single flavor, but the plants and trees, thickets and groves, each accept the moisture that is appropriate to its portion. All the various trees, whether superior or inferior, take what is fitting for large or small, and each is enabled to sprout and grow roots and limb, leaf, and the glow and hue of flower, and few one rain succeeds them, able to become fresh and glossy, whether their allotment of such from large or small. The moistening they receive is one, but each grows and flourishes in its own way. The Buddha is like this when he appears in the world, comparable to a great cloud that covers all things everywhere. Having appeared in the world for the sake of living beings, he makes distinctions and expounding the truth regarding phenomena. The great sage, the world-honored one, to heaven, human beings in the midst of all beings, pronounce these words: I am the thus come one, most honored of two-legged beings. I appear in the world like a great cloud that showers moisture upon all the dry and withered living beings, so that all are able to escape suffering. Joy of peace and security, the joys of this world and the joy of nirvana. All you heavenly and human beings of this assembly, listen careful. With one mind all of you should gather around and observe the one of unexcelled honor, in order to bring peace and security to living beings. I have appeared in the world, and for the sake of this great assembly, law is of a single flavor, that of emancipation, nirvana. With a single wonderful sound I expound and unfold this. For the sake of the great vehicle, I create causes and conditions. I look upon all things as being universally equal. I have this or that, to love one or hate another. I am without greed or attachment, and without limitation or hindrance. For all things I preach the law equally, as I would for a single person, the same way I do for numerous persons. Constantly I expound and preach the law. Never have I done anything else, coming, going, sitting, standing, never to that being weary or disheartened. I bring fullness and satisfaction to the world, like a rain that oyster everywhere, imminent and lowly, superior and inferior, observers of precepts, violators of precepts, those fully endowed with proper demeanor, those now fully endowed with king capacity of dull capacity. I cause the Dharma reign to reign on all equally, never lax or neglectful. When all the various living beings hear my law, they receive it according to their power, dwelling in their different environments. Some inhabit the realm of human and heavenly beings, of wheel turning sage king Shakta Brahma. Other kings, these are the inferior medicinal herbs. Some understand the law of no outflows, are able to attain nirvana, to acquire the six transcendental powers, and gain in particular the three understandings, or live alone in mountain forests, constantly practicing meditation and gaining the enlightenment of Pratyeka Buddhas. These are the middling medicinal herbs, till others seek the place of honored one, convinced that they can become Buddhas, putting forth diligent effort in practicing meditation. These are the superior medicinal herbs. Again, there are sons of the Buddha who devote their mind solely to the Buddha way, constantly practicing mercy and compassion. Attain Buddhahood, certain of it and never doubting. These I call the small trees, those who abide in peace in their transcendental powers, turning the wheel of non-regression, saving innumerable millions of hundreds of thousands of living beings. Bodhisattvas such as these I call the large trees. The equality of the Buddha's preaching is like a rain of a single flavor, but depending upon the nature living being, the way in which it is received is not uniform. Just as the various plants and trees each receive the moisture in a different manner, the Buddha employs this parable as an expedient means, then reveal the matter using various kinds of words and phrases and expounding the single law. But in terms of the Buddha wisdom, this is no more than one drop of the ocean. I rain down the Dharma rain, filling the whole world, when this single flavored Dharma is preached by each according individual's power. Chapter 6, Bestowal of Prophecy. At the time the world honored one, having finished reciting these verses, made an announcement to the great assembly. Speaking in these words, I announce this to the monks. When I employ the Buddha, I to observe Kashyapa. Here I see that future existence, after innumerable kalpas have passed, he will be able to attain Buddhahood. In future existences, he will offer alms and enter the presence of 3,000 billion Buddhas, world honored ones. For this, the Buddha wisdom, he will carry out Brahma practices strictly, and will offer alms to the unexcelled ones, the most honored of two-legged beings. After he had done the unsurpassed heights of wisdom in his final incarnation, he will be able to become a Buddha. His land will be pure and clean. The ground of lapis lazuli, many jewel trees will line the roadsides with golden ropes to mark the roads, and those who see it will rejoice. It will constantly emit a pleasing fragrance, with heaps of rare flowers scattered around, and many kinds of strange and wonderful things for its adornment. The land will be level and smooth, without hills or depressions. The multitude of bodhisattvas will be beyond calculation, mind subdued and gentle, having attained great transcendental powers, and they will uphold and embrace the great vehicle scriptures of the Buddhas. A multitude multitude of voice hearers will be free of outflows in their hearts incarnate. Sons of the Dharma King, and their number too will be beyond calculation, even when the eye one cannot determine their number. This Buddha will have a lifespan of 12 small kalpas. His correct law will endure in the world for 20 small kalpas, and his counterfeit law for 20 small kalpas. Like bright world honored one will be of his description at the time the world on continued speaking, saying, "You multitude of monks, I now announce this to you. All of you with a single mind should hear what I say. My major disciples of Buddha is destined to become up with the title rare form. He will offer to countless tens of thousands and millions of Buddhas. By following the practices of the Buddhas, he will gradually fulfill the great way. His final incarnation will acquire the 32 features in the Buddha's law. Will be many bodhisattvas, all of them with king capacities, turning the wheel of non-regression. That land will constantly adorn with bodhisattvas. A multitude of voice hearers will be beyond calculation, all gaining the 3 understandings and exercising the 6 transcendental powers. They will dwell in the 8 emancipations and possess great. The Buddha will have a lifespan of 12 small kalpas. His correct law will endure the world for 20 small kalpas, and his counterfeit law for 20. Continues speaking, saying, "You multitude of monks, listen, all of you with a single mind, for in what I speak here is nothing that departs from the truth. Katyana here will give various kinds of fine and wonderful art offerings to the Buddhas, and after the Buddhas have entered extinction, he will raise 7 jewel towers and present flowers and incense as offerings to their relics. Final incarnation, he will gain Buddha wisdom and achieve impartial and correct enlightenment. His land will be pure and clean, and he will save innumerable tens of thousands of millions of living beings, and will receive offerings from all the 10 directions. Buddha's brilliance, no one will be able to equal. This Buddha's title will be Jumbo, great light bodhisattvas and voice hearers, cutting off all forms of existence. Countless and innumerable in number will adorn his land at the time the world honored one continues saying, of mind the great Bodhgayana, when he has cast off his present body, will be able to see 8,210,000 million Buddhas, world honored ones, and for the sake of the Buddha way he will he will constantly carry out Brahma practices, and for immeasurable kalpas will uphold and embrace the Buddha's law. When these Buddhas have passed into extinction, he will raise 7 jewel towers with golden implements to mark the spot for all time, and flowers, incense, and presented as offerings in the memorial towers of the Buddha. Step by step he will fulfill all the duties of the Bodhisattva, and in the land called Mind Delight will be able to become a Buddha named Tarampatra. Sandalwood fragrances. Buddha's lifespan will be 24 kalpas. Constantly for the sake of heavenly and human beings, he will expound the Buddha way. Voice hearers, Venerable as Ganges stands with the 3 understandings and 6 transcendental powers, will display great authority and virtue. Countless bodhisattvas will be of firm will, diligent in effort. Regard to the Buddha wisdom, none will ever retrogress. After this Buddha had passed into extinction, his correct law will endure for 40 small kalpas, and his counterfeit do likewise. My various disciples, fully endowed with dignity and virtue, number 500, and everyone will receive such a prophecy. Since all will be able to attain Buddhahood. Chapter 7, the parable of the phantom city. At the time the world honored one addressed the assembly and said, I will employ an expedient means to lead you pursuit of Buddha wisdom. Because of these earlier causes and conditions, I now preach the Lotus Sutra. I will cause you to enter the Buddha way. Be attentive and harbor no fear. Suppose was a steep bad road in a remote wasteland with many harmful beasts, a place moreover without water or grass, one dreaded by people. A group of countless thousands and 10,000s wanted to pass over the steep road, but the road was very long and far stretching, extending 500 yojanas. At this time there was a leader born possessing wisdom of clear understanding and determined mind, capable of saving endangered persons from manifold difficulties. The members of the group were all worried and disheartened and said to their lead, "We are now exhausted with fatigue and wish you round and go back." The leader thought to himself, "These people are truly pitiful. Why do they wish to turn back and miss the many treasures?" Time he thought of an expedient means, deciding to exercise his transcendental powers. He conjured up a great walled city and adorned its mansions, surrounding them with gardens and groves, channels of flowing water, ponds and lakes with double gates and tall towers, and pavilions all filled with men and women. As soon as he had created this illusion, he conferred, saying, "Have no fear, you can enter the city and teach them." When the people had entered the city, they were all overjoyed in heart. All had a feeling of ease and tranquility, telling themselves that they had been saved. When the leader knew they were rested, he called them together and announced, "Now you must push forward. This is nothing, a phantom city. I saw that you were weary and exhausted and wanted to turn back in mid-journey. Therefore I used the power of expedient means to conjure up the city for the moment. You must diligently, so that together you may reach the place where the treasure is. I do likewise, acting as leader to all beings. I see the seekers of the way growing disheartened in mid-journey, unable to pass over the steep road of birth and death and earthly desires. I use this power of expedient means to preach nirvana, to provide them with rest, saying, your sufferings are extinguished. You have carried out all the and all have attained the stage of Arhat. Then I call the great assembly together and preach the Buddhas through the power of expedient means make distinctions. There is only the single Buddha vehicle. The other two nirvanas are preached to provide a resting place. Now I expound the truth for you. What you have attained is not extinction. For the sake of the offensive wisdom of the Buddha, you must expend great effort and diligence. If you have the law of the Buddha with its comprehensive wisdom and 10 powers and are endowed with the 32 features, and this will be true extinction. The Buddhas and their city as leaders preach nirvana to provide a rest, but when they know you have become rested, they lead you onward on the Buddha wisdom. Let's go to tab 9, page 171. 171. Bodhisattva Avalokita, while moving in the discourse of Prajna Paramita, shed light on the 5 skandhas and found them equally empty. After this penetration, he overcame ill-being. Listen, Shadiput, form is emptiness, emptiness is form, form is not other than emptiness, emptiness is not other than form. The same is true with feelings, perception, mental formation, consciousness. Listen, Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. They are neither produced nor destroyed, neither defiled nor immaculate, neither increasing nor decreasing. Therefore in emptiness there is form nor feelings, no perception nor mental formations, nor consciousness, no eye or ear or nose or tongue or body or mind, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind, no realms of elements, no interdependent origin, no extinction of them, no ill-being, no cause of ill-being, no end of ill-being, and no path, no come fear, liberating themselves forever from illusion and realizing perfect nirvana. All Buddhas in the past, present, and future arrive at Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Therefore, one should know that perfect understanding is the highest mantra, the unequaled mantra, the destroyer of ill being, the incorruptible mantra. Prajna Paramita should therefore be proclaimed. Gate Gate Para Gate Para Samgate Bodhi Swaha Gate Gate Para Gate Para Samgate Bodhi Swaha Gate Gate Para Gate Para Samgate Bodhi Swaha. Tien beings are limitless. I vow to liberate them. Afflictions are endless. I vow to eradicate them. Teachings are infinite. I vow to learn them. Buddhahood is I vow to vow that from now until the end of my life and in all future lives until I attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, that I will help all sentient beings in all realms of existence in their suffering. Namo thus come one worthy of offerings, a proper and universal knowledge, perfect in understanding and conduct, skillful, leaving the world through liberation, perfect and complete understanding of all worldly dharma, unsurpassed, night taming hero, teach gods and people, Buddha, the world honored one. Namo Shakya Muni Buddha, Namo Shakya Muni Buddha, Namo Shakya Muni Buddha, Namo Manjush, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamaprapta Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamaprapta Bodhisattva, Namo Mahasamaprapta Bodhisattva, Namo Shittigarbha Bodhisattva, Namo Shittigarbha Bodhisattva, Namo Shittigarbha Bodhisattva, Namo Manjushri Bodhisattva, Namo Manjushri Bodhisattva, Namo Manjushri Bodhisattva, Namo Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Namo Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Namo Samantabhadra Om Maitreya Bodhisattva, Namo Maitreya Bodhisattva, Namo Maitreya Bodhisattva, Namo Great Pure Sea like Bodhisattvas, Namo Great Pure Sea like Bodhisattvas, Namo Great Pure Sea like Bodhisattvas, Namo Deva guarding Bodhisattvas, Namo Deva guarding Bodhisattvas, Namo Deva guarding Bodhisattvas. Refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. In the refuge of Buddha, see the path of light and beauty in the world, dwelling in the refuge of Dharma. I learned to open many doors on the path of formation, dwelling in the refuge of Sangha, shining light that supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction. Refuge in the Buddha, in myself I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the mind of taking refuge in the Dharma. In myself I aspire to help all people master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation, taking refuge in the Sangha. In myself I aspire help all people, fourfold communities to embrace all beings and support their transformation. Citing the sutras, practicing the way of awareness, rise to benefits without limits. We vow to share the fruits with all beings. We vow to offer tribute to parents, teachers, friends, and numerous beings who give guidance and support along the path.